And welcome everyone to Beyond the Forecast. I am Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens, and today we continue with National Boater Safety Week. And you might say, well, how does boats have to do with weather? And well, here in the Great Lakes, we definitely take in boating season. And as we are getting ready for boating season, there's some things you have to remember when it comes to our weather and our amazing lakes and rivers. Water temperature, the weather that impacts our lakes, and also what you can expect or should know as you're heading out on those big lakes. So today we are going to jump into some of those conditions that you might run into in the Great Lakes. Rip currents. Meteorologist John Gross breaks down rip currents, what they are, how they're created, and how you can safely get out of rip currents. Because if you don't know this information, you might not make it out of a rip current. So meteorologist John Gross breaks that down for you for the science and weather aspect. And then I take you into a fun experiment about a boat and water tension. If you recall back a few episodes, man, it might have been the first 10 or 20 episodes, we took you into the Marangoni effect and water tension and how a little drop of dish soap can drag molecules. That's all it takes. But did you know that if you put a boat in there, you can make it move around? We'll have that science experiment for you coming up in just a little bit. And then we also take you back into one of our many podcasts that we have shot and give you information about how you can catch the Beyond the Forecast live streaming podcasts and where you can go to hear or watch old ones. But first up, this day in weather history. You have to go all the way back to 1895. On May 21st, the temperature in Norfolk, Ohio dropped to 19 degrees to set a state record for the month of May. Now imagine, May 21st, 1895, 19 degrees. I'm sorry, but that is very chilly for this time of year. That would be insane. But again, 1895, you have to go all the way back. 19 degrees. That's chilly. All right, yesterday, trivia time, we asked you, how many tornadoes does the United States average a year? And believe it or not, the United States averages the most tornadoes in the world every year. Is it 1,000, 900, 7, or 1,200? Believe it or not, it is 1,200 tornadoes a year. And if I do know we've seen way more warnings than that this year already. I don't know on confirmed tornadoes, but Michigan has already seen over our yearly average of tornadoes this year already. And usually our tornado average in Michigan is 14. And it's usually southern Michigan, but we've seen some already in our neck of the woods in northern Michigan. So today we want to know, what is the hottest temperature ever recorded in the world? Is it 200, 134, 112, or 187? QR code with your phone, scan it, and then put your answer in. And then we'll give you the answer tomorrow in Beyond the Forecast. All right, viewer photo of the day. This is a amazing photo. It's brought to you by Great Rooms. Today's picture comes to us from Tammy Stroud. And Tammy says, bald eagle in Lake City. Look at this picture. Absolutely stunning picture of this beautiful creature. Thank you so much, Tammy, for sending in the majestic photo of the bald eagle. Thank you. We appreciate that here on Beyond the Forecast. And thank you to Great Rooms for sponsoring that. All right, let's get into our first segment today, dealing with rip currents. The Great Lakes can see them, and we've been seeing them a lot over the last 10 to 15 years, but how can you prep yourself and be safe against rip currents? Meteorologist John Gross breaks down the science of it and what weather we see this in throughout the summers. We'll have that coming up right after the break.
Hey there, everybody. Meteorologist John Gross, and now we are starting to get into the warmer months. We're getting closer to the summer season. We're going to be finding more people doing more recreational activities out on the water, like boating, jet skiing, swimming, things of that nature. So we have to talk about a few things that we can see develop in the water, and we're talking mainly about areas into the ocean, anywhere where you can get a current setting up. We're talking about what we call rip currents. Now, you might have heard of this term before, and it is a place you do not want to be. if you are ever caught out in the water and you happen to experience a rip current. So here's a look at it. Here's the coastline. We're taking a look at the ocean here, and the current, when you're talking about the rip current, it's moving away from the shoreline, or it's moving away from the coast, and it can be a very strong current depending on just the setup of what you're talking about within the water itself. And even for strong swimmers, this can be a particularly dangerous situation to be in. Unfortunately, we have seen deaths occur if you're not careful and you're caught in one of these rip currents, so you need to make sure that you're paying attention to the forecast, the surf zone forecast, and you also want to make sure that if you are ever caught in one of these rip currents, you do know exactly what to do. So let's go over some of the surf zone forecasts. Now, they are labeled within 3 categories. You're talking about the low risk, the moderate risk, and the high risk. Now, what you want to see if you're planning to go out swimming, maybe into the ocean, is the low risk. So again, you're talking about the rip current risk being at its lowest. It's never completely zero, but you're talking about, again, the lowest risk there in the category. So this is what you're talking about, at least the risk for it to be the safest to be out swimming in the water. When you're talking about a moderate risk, now we're talking about life-threatening rip currents. They're possible. So we are increasing that risk. So this is a chance where you do not probably want to find yourself out in the water. Maybe if you're a very strong swimmer at best, but even still, you want to make sure that you're being very, very careful and making sure that you have at least people knowing where you're at, maybe a lifeguard nearby, things of that nature. If we're talking about a high-risk day, you want to avoid the water completely. Life-threatening rip currents are then likely. So again, not a place that you do want to find yourself. So when you're talking about rip current safety, here's a few good tips or just things to know before you do head out to the water. And one of the main things is just knowing how to swim. You want to make sure that you are at least a moderate to a very strong swimmer when we're talking about this, and you never want to swim alone. You at least want to make sure someone is nearby you, if not knowing where you are swimming in case a rip current does occur. Another good thing that you can have in your back pocket, or at least knowing there's a little bit more peace of mind, is knowing that you do have a lifeguard on duty. Sometimes you can be in a spot where there is no lifeguard on duty, or it is posted that there is no lifeguard on duty, and it can say swim at your own risk. So that's exactly what we're talking about there. And a good analogy just to avoid any rip currents, if you're in doubt, don't go out into the water. And if you do happen to get caught in a rip current, one of the main things that you can do immediately is try not to freak out and relax, because the rip current is not going to pull you underwater. The rip current is only going to pull you out to water. So making sure that you're not swimming against that current, because that is going to be how you tire yourself out very, very quickly. Instead, if you do happen to find yourself in that rip current, you want to swim out of it. You want to swim parallel to the shore, trying to get out of that current before you start to swim closer to shore again. So again, trying not to swim into the current. You want to swim parallel to that shore, getting out of that current, so that will allow you to swim back to shore safely. And then, last but not least, if you find yourself not being able to get out of that rip current, the best option for you is trying to just float or tread water, and making sure that you're trying to get attention to the people that may be on shore, potentially a lifeguard, yelling or waving for help. That way that you can get out of that situation as quickly as possible and be safe to go home to your loved ones or your family later on that night. I'm meteorologist John Gross reporting for Beyond the Forecast.
Thanks, John. That's life-saving advice right there. Keep that in the back of your heads, everybody. Now, coming up next, I'm going to show you a fun little experiment that you might recall that we showed you a few months back called the Marangoni effect, and how you can play around with it with a toy boat. We'll have those details right after the break. And welcome everyone back to Beyond the Forecast. I am Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens, and today we're going to be doing a fun little experiment that, if you recall, we showed this one kind of already, but today's kind of a new take on it with the help of a boat shape. So all you need is a dish of water. The longer dish, the better, because we are going to be sending this boat sailing. And if you recall back to the experiment that we had before, it's called the Marangoni effect. So Marangoni is an Italian physicist and meteorologist, and he discovered that water tension, when you disrupt it with something, the water grabs molecules. So we put pepper in a dish and took a little bit of soap on our finger and put it into the water, and it separates or pulls the molecules, and that's the pepper. You can see the Marangoni effect taking place. Well, we were going to do that today, but with a boat. So obviously, we're doing boater safety this week, but this is just a fun experiment that you can test out on your own to do the Marangoni effect with a boat shape. And in fact, you could do it with someone else and kind of have boat wars if you have another boat in there and put some drops of soap and see who comes out on top. But essentially, we're going to take this boat, we are going to place it in our water, and then we're going to take just a little bit of soap. Once it gets down to us, just a little bit of dish soap on our finger, just like that. That works. And then once we put it behind our boat, it should take off. There it goes. Look at that. I almost submerged my boat. So what you're going to need to do to make your boat is you're going to need something that is going to be hard. So something like plastic or possibly hard cardboard. And then, this might not work a second time because it is more of a paper base. Then you put it in the water, and as it's on the surface, you drop your finger in there, and it'll do the Marangoni effect, where the molecules pull. So when you're behind the boat, the molecules will pull your boat forward. And that is what's going to be happening here with the Marangoni effect. So again, Marangoni was an Italian physicist and meteorologist who discovered that when you take a little bit of dish soap and place it in the water, molecules, because of water tension, grab everything and move. So the salt trick that we showed you before is prime example of those water molecules being disrupted by water tension and pulling away. So if you take your boat, put it in the water, and put your finger behind that, you're going to send the boat forward. But it's really the water molecules around it grabbing it and pulling it forward because you're disrupting it with that dish soap and those water molecules and that water tension. So pretty cool. A really fun experiment for you to try anywhere. And you can do this, again, at home, school, and really impress your friends or maybe even teachers with the Marangoni effect. It's pretty cool. And then if you really want to, you don't have to always do a boat, but you can just do a little bit of salt, boop, put your finger on there with a little bit of dish soap or pepper, and the pepper will run away. So there you go. The Marangoni effect with a little fun boat that you could actually get someone else and do boat wars. The last boat standing wins. So there you go. Pretty cool. We'll have one last segment here on Beyond the Forecast coming up right after the break. And welcome back to Beyond the Forecast. Today, we're going to be jumping back into another segment of our Beyond the Forecast live streaming podcast. You can catch these every Tuesday at 10 a.m. And as of the last few weeks, we are getting ready for a big move, so we haven't had them per se. So we're kind of looking back at the 6 we've already done and how you can watch them back or listen to them back. So you can find these on the 910 News YouTube channel where they'll live forever, but you can also find them on the Beyond the Forecast Facebook page. And if you take in podcasts, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts or some other way with video source as well, they will be on there shortly. But here's a clip with me and meteorologist Haley Fischetti on one of our Beyond the Forecast live streaming podcasts. Check it out. Halloween in Michigan, you can sometimes get snow, sometimes not. It's the transition period, so it is colder. Mm-hmm. But November is usually when you sit down to snow.
Yes.
The last 5 years, we have not gotten a ton of snow.
No.
Whether it is November or the beginning of December.
Yep.
I don't recall the last 5 years of hunting being so bare and warm. And that has been in good ways for me too. I don't remember shooting nearly as many deer in November as I have. But it's very different.
Yes.
And that is what we're talking about when it comes to the patterns. The patterns, and John had an interview yesterday that we showed with the Mackinac Bridge, and he had a really good point. The Bridge Authority is saying we are seeing more of these ice closure days now.
Yeah.
And it's just been the last 5-10 years that we're seeing more ice at the Mackinac Bridge.
Yeah.
And John's like, yeah, the pattern is we're seeing that freeze line get farther north.
100%.
And I can attest to this through and through. From when I started here at 9 and 10 in 2010 to now, that freeze line used to be at M20, M46, down towards Saginaw, Mount Pleasant.
Yeah.
And then it worked its way up towards us around 2015 or so. And then it was up towards Gaylord around 2020. And now it's up towards the Straits.
Yeah.
So whenever a system comes in, you usually see a freeze line where you see snow and then you have
it's the rain snow line.
Mix, ice, and then rain.
Yep.
And back in the day, I say the day, it's 15 years, but back in the day,
back in my day,
it would usually be the central lower would always see rain. And then the mixed line would be right up towards M20, US 10. And then we'd have snow north. That line is now getting farther north. Doesn't mean you won't always see that. You will always see that line north. It just means it's getting more prominent up north. The lower peninsula is seeing more rain now, and the freeze line is more up towards Petoskey, Mackinac, saying this. And the problem is that's continuing to go north. And if that continues to go north, what's that do for us when it comes to systems in general? Snow, a winter season.
Yeah.
That means the bridge gets iced. The bridge doesn't have anything they can do with ice. If there's ice on it, they have to close it down.
It's a bridge.
Right. They don't have heaters on it. They can't shake it. It's a 5-mile long extension or suspension bridge. There you go. Extension bridge.
Extension bridge.
It does extend when it's warm.
Yeah.
But the problem is if the bridge ices, it's closed. And it's closed for a long time until that ice is off that bridge. Which if you're the freeze line, it's not going to disappear very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's very weird looking at the climate of fall and spring in northern Michigan and what we're seeing trend, if you will.
Yes.
What is becoming the norm. That norm for where the freeze line is getting farther north. And that's what concerns me when it comes to winter seasons because, one, it's cutting them down.
Yeah.
Like last year. 2, it hurts the economy because you don't have that season.
Yeah, we rely on winter
anymore.
Season. Yeah.
And 3, it throws everything in northern Michigan for a loop. Whether it's the trees, whether it's maple syrup, whether it's the animals.
Hunting, whether it's everything, yeah.
Everything is now based off of what used to be this exact point, now weeks difference.
It is interesting you talking about the freezing rain line of someone who came here in 2022, where you grew up here, but you also came back and like saw where the freezing line was. When I first started here, in my mind, like Mount Pleasant, like we forecast all the way down to Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant was always the hot spot when I first started here. Like I was always a guarantee, like you're gonna see warm temperatures in that area. But even in the past 3 years of me being here, now you're slowly starting to see Houghton Lake kind of be that hot spot. Going over towards areas more east, which we always guaranteed Mayo and Alpena was always going to be colder spots. But it's now like encasing everywhere where you're seeing that warm spot, not even just in Mount Pleasant because they're just close enough to areas downstate that you kind of count them in. But now it's Reed City, it's Big Rapids, up to Houghton Lake, even Cadillac's starting to get that warmth. And it's really weird. Even my just 3 years now being here, seeing that small line move up of just warm air, not even just the freezing line, but in Reed City, when I lived there for a little bit, like we didn't see like as much snow as even like Cadillac saw. Like I was always guaranteed Rachel would sometimes drive from Big Rapids or Traverse City, and I would tell her which way she should come home.
So there you go. And we continue to talk about the topics. If it is a designated week for a topic, we talk about that topic. But if it is a free week where we're talking about anything and everything that is science and weather, well, that's where we leave it open for you to choose the topic. And we will put those on the Beyond the Forecast Facebook page, and that is where you can go to weigh in and let us know, hey, let's talk about this topic. And then we'll turn around, talk about the topic that wins, and you can partake in that because it is a live streaming event. You get to discuss with us and ask questions while it's happening about that topic. So that is it. for today and Beyond the Forecast. We appreciate you being here. For meteorologist John Gross, meteorologist Haley Fischetti, I'm Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens. Join us tomorrow, 4:30, again, for more Beyond the Forecast. Be good, stay safe, take care. We'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, everybody.